We are now streaming live.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'll turn it over to Angela to start us off.
Oh, greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We're sorry that we're a little bit late, but we're here. And this month, our books will be focused on recognizing that February is Black History Month. So I'll be looking at some stories and poems and whatnot that relate to Black History Month, whether it's stories of Black people or stories written by Black people, so Black authors and whatnot. And we encourage everybody to seek out some of these books or other books this month and just reflect on what Black History Month is. And also try and remember that there's a lot of great Black Canadians. Don't just focus on the Americans that we all know because it's permeated through our culture, but do take some time to seek out some prominent and wonderful Black Canadians who have done their part for making Canada a better place to live. So we're going to start off with a poem, and I'm hoping, oh, there we go. Good, 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 good. My People by Langston Hughes. And I do want to shout out to Mel who brought this up to our attention so that we could use this today. So here we go. My people. My people. The night is beautiful. So the faces. I love that. Of my people. The stars are beautiful. So the eyes. Of my people. Beautiful also. Is the sun. Beautiful also. Are the souls. Of my people. I love those portraits. Those are just amazing. My people. And I pass it off to our next reader.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself when I started there. Bee Boy Buzz by Bell Hooks. I be boy. All bliss boy, all fine beat, all boy, bow boy. Beautiful. All bad boy beast. All boy. I be boy running, I be boy jumping. Boy sitting down. I be boy laughing, telling my story, talking way too loud. then sitting all quiet, still. All boy, hug me close, don't let me down. All boy, big open heart, sweet mind. All think and dream time, alone with myself. All ready for the world to see and play. All be boy Buzz. In love with being a boy.
Okay, and finally, the last stop on Market Street.
The Last Stop on Market Street. Words by Matt de la Penne and the pictures are by Christian Robinson. For Luna and her two grandmas, Ronnie and Grace, M. de la Penne. For Nina, C.R. CJ pushed through the church doors, skipped down the steps. The outside air smelled like freedom, but it also smelled like rain, which freckled CJ's shirt and dripped down his nose. He ducked under his Nana's umbrella, saying, "How come we gotta wait for the bus in all this wet?" "Trees get thirsty too," his Nana told him. "Don't you see that big one drinking through a straw?" CJ looked for a long time, but he never saw a straw. From the bus stop he watched water pool on flower petals, watched rain patter against the windscreen of a nearby cab. His friend Kobe climbed in, gave CJ a wave, and drove off with his dad. "Nana, how come we don't got a car?" "Boy, what do you need a car for? We got this bus that breathes fire, and old Mr. Dennis, who always has a trick for you." The bus creaked to a stop in front of them. It sighed and it sagged, and the doors swung open. "What's that I see?" Mr. Dennis asked. He pulled a coin from behind CJ's ear and placed it in his palm. Nana laughed in her deep laugh and pushed CJ along. They sat right up front. The man across the way was tuning a guitar. The old woman with curlers had butterflies in a jar. And Nana gave everyone a great big smile and a good afternoon. She made sure that CJ did the same. The bus lurched forward and stopped, lurched forward and stopped. Nana hummed as she knitted. "How come we got to go to church?" CJ said. "Girl and Kobe never have to go nowhere." "I feel sorry for those boys," she told him. "They never have a chance to meet Boo or the sunglass man. And I hear Trixie got herself a brand new hat." CJ stared out the window, feeling sorry for himself. He watched cars zip by on the other side, watched a group of boys hop curbs on bikes. A man climbed aboard with a spotted dog. CJ gave up his seat. "How come that man can't see?" "Boy, what do you know about seeing?" Nana told him. "Some people watch the world with their ears." That's a fact. Their noses too, the man said, sniffing the air. That's a mighty fine perfume you're wearing today, ma'am. Nana squeezed the man's hand and laughed her deep laugh. Two older boys got on next. CJ watched as they moved on by and stood at the back. Sure wish I had one of those, he said. Nana sat her knitting down. What for? You got the real live thing sitting across from you. Why don't you ask the man if he'll play us a song? CJ didn't have to. The guitar player was already plucking strings and beginning to sing. To feel the magic of music, the blind man whispered, I need to close my eyes. Nana closed her eyes too. So did CJ and the spotted dog. And in the darkness, the rhythm lifted CJ out of the bus and out of the busy city. He saw sunset colors swirling over crashing waves, saw a family of hawks slicing through the sky, saw the old woman's butterflies dancing free in the light of the moon. CJ's chest grew full as he was lost in the sound, and the sound gave him a feeling of magic. The song ended and CJ opened his eyes. Everyone on the bus clapped, even the boys in the back. Nana glanced at the coin in CJ's palm. CJ dropped it into the man's hat. Last stop on Market Street, Mr. Dennis called. CJ looked around as he stepped off the bus. Crumbling pavements and the broken down doors, graffiti tagged windows and boarded up stores. He reached for his Nana's hand. How come it's always so dirty over here? She smiled and pointed to the sky. Sometimes when you're surrounded by dirt, CJ, you're a better witness for what is beautiful. CJ saw the perfect window. CJ saw the perfect arching over the kitchen window. He wondered how his Nana always found beauty, where he never even thought to look. He looked all around again at the bus rounding the corner out of sight, and the broken street lamps still lit up bright, and the stray cat shadows moving across the wall. When he spotted their familiar faces in the window, he said, I'm glad we're here. He thought his Nana might laugh, her deep laugh, but she didn't. She patted him on the head and told him, me too, CJ. Now come on.
Not sure whether you wanted these questions or if we'll do our own questions.
Mel, your copy seemed different than the one that was on there. Are there two different versions of the book?
I'm wondering if we might have just had a few pages that got skipped when scanning.
Oh,
I like those questions.
So what did speak to your hearts and minds? I'm guessing this might be something from Diane. Is that right?
I love that the bus was like a microcosm of life. Everything, you could see people of all shapes and sizes and all different interests. I love the way that the grandmother was, not chiding, but just, it all seemed very matter of fact. Of course, why do you need, listen to an iPod? You've got a guitar there, but I really like the fact that everything was shrunk down to something like a child's reality within a bus that they could relate to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I thought that was it was also like nicely captured in the illustrations too about that, right? All the difference. And I really I like the part about, telling us to look for beauty, right? Because oftentimes we get so focused on complaining or what's not working right, or we're so tired. And we forget to remember that there's beauty all around us, and things that can help uplift our spirits when we are in those kind of moods where we're feeling negative or feeling down. So I love that part of the book.
That was my favorite line too, about seeing the beauty. And I really think that, yeah, I love how that grandmother was modeling openness and optimism and hope. I think that she really did it in such a beautiful way to kind of share that, her worldview with her grandson. I think that was just a really beautiful way of showing that relationship and how much is transmitted from generation to generation.
Yeah, I echo what you said, Hannah, that the modeling and the grandmother modeling the beauty and the fun, the enjoyment, and what you can see along the way. And it was lovely at the end when CJ says that he's glad. He said, "I'm glad I came," so he was able to see that beauty, and it just shows how modeling, how attitude and your vision and what you see in the world, how can that you can share that with another person. So it was very beautiful to see at the end that he was, after all this complaining about why he has to go on the bus and why he can't be with his friends, why he can't have this and that. And at the end, it's like he understood, he's content, and that was lovely to see the child content.
I have a question for the educators on the call. So I love the fact that the dialogue was written like how the grandmother would be speaking to her grandson. It wasn't grammatically, whatever that means, grammatically correct. And I'm thinking back to the B-Boy Buzz book as well. Is that how do you how does that figure into what you're teaching the kids? Does that make it more relatable for them when it's written in that way? Yeah, we'll be interested to hear your comment.
I have read Last Stop on Market Street a lot. And at first I was, but I wasn't sure about, modeling if it was, because I remember being in placement and having a placement coordinator say about how much influence we have with children, and that we need to be able to speak grammatically correct. And but I think now I've come to see that it's not my place to make that decision. It's the author has written it that way for a reason, and that's not my place to make that decision of changing it or deciding how to speak. But and Yvonne, back to what you were saying about the grandmother's way of being matter of fact. Sam and I were just talking about that, and it comes up a lot when educators think about that story. Is that the honest, authentic way that she answers those questions, we could all learn from that. That it wasn't a shh, don't say that about blind people, because it sends such a strong message when we hush children's questions. It sends a message that person is not worthy, or that question, like, you've noticed a difference, and we need to celebrate difference and acknowledge that, yes, that man can't see. And then for him to help us think about closing our eyes to connect to music. That book is just so full of so many social identities and diverse ways of thinking about the world. And it's interesting, there's been so many educators that when we think about it, they are also thinking about the fact of, that it's a food bank. And there was one educator was like, I'm embarrassed to say that I thought that the grandmother and the grandson were going to the food bank, like that they weren't, that was their community, that they were going home from church, and that was their community. She said, I had this whole story made up in my mind about what was happening with that family. And so we're finding that the more that we read these stories, the more biases that unconscious biases that people have, even about income, or about the fact that CJ's friend has a car and not everybody has a car. Like, there's these simple messages to think about with even socioeconomic status.
Yeah, I think those are really great points, and the you know, the fact about how we respond to diversity is so important, right? Because we oftentimes folks will send conflicting messages about diversity. On the one hand, saying yes, we encourage diversity, or you know, we want inclusion, and things like that, but then little things will kind of conflict with that, right? Whether it's in how they respond to questions from children about differences, or how they model um, looking at inclusion and diversity in a good way, all of those kind of things, how the, you know, how we can as individuals help to um, normalize what diversity actually is, right? Which is looking at the uniqueness of individuals, and caring and believing in those differences that make up a bigger part of us all together in relationship, right? Whatever those relationships are. And how it's important that, you know, not just to notice the diversity, but to even go further and talk about why it's important, right? Why it's important that everybody's not the same, and that's the beauty of it, right? And in the B-Boy Buzz, I was waiting for somebody to, you know, start doing like a spoken word kind of thing. Maybe that's, I don't know anything about the author or the book aside from what we just read, and so it got me thinking about other ways that you could use use that book in a performance way also, right? So different ways of kind of doing the readings, but in different styles or in different voices, or you know, just whether it's to include different audiences or whatever. But I just thought that was really good. The other thing that struck me with that with the B-Boy Buzz book was that, you know, he's just being a boy, just going around doing his thing, and all of that. And the unfortunate thing that came into my mind is how oftentimes Black children, or children of other ethnicities, mainly Black children, are seen to be older than they actually are, right? And oftentimes they're you know, they don't get to just be children, because there's always this kind of heightened awareness that they may be seen as older, and of course then, you know, all the stereotypes that kind of play along with that as well, right? So I just thought it was great that that was just running around being a boy, doing what, you know, doing what he does, and being happy in that moment. But also for me, it gave me pause for deeper reflection on that.
Sam and I were reflecting about the artwork. I'm not familiar with the B-Boy Buzz, but I love it. I want to find it now and have it here, because children would be so drawn to the designs and the images, and yeah, connecting to the wide variety of emotions that boys should be allowed to cry and have it. Like, that was an important message. You know, the words that they were using were very specific, and about using your big body. A boy about laughing, crying, telling a story, being way too loud and talking. Like, I have read a few things about that as educators we need to be thinking about how sometimes do we have all these unrealistic expectations for you know, how children, especially children of color, may be wanting to express themselves. And so I'm learning a bit about that too, because I don't, again, it's not something in my context to connect to. So I appreciate these stories to help me learn about that. And And yeah, but the artwork, we were just struck by it. That story could have went on forever because we just kept seeing each page, and we were so curious about the design and how beautiful the art was.
And I was thinking as I'm listening to you talking, I was thinking, wouldn't that be a great activity for children to do? So use that kind of as a reference. So I be boy, and then all the different things, and have kind of children create their own little stories about, I be whatever, right? And all the kind of artwork and images that could go along with that. I'm picturing it in my head, and I love that idea.
That sounds like a great extension of that book. Maybe something we can take up in our classrooms.
I really enjoy Bell Hooks, the author. She's a Black feminist activist, and her writing is very poetic. So I love poetry, and I loved this because it's Black American culture and the language that is used and the rhythm of the language. And I think when it's put through in a poetic way, you really get the rhythm of the language and help you kind of, for me, loosen up a bit, because I'm quite stiff and a bit formal with it. But this is so beautiful, and I loved that it's celebrating little boys, boy power. You know what I mean? And I think it's very beautiful, and I love the illustrations. It's something so very different when you see the pattern of the boy, that is the body part and the patterns, how they just meld in together. It's very, I don't understand art and illustrations, but I love to look at it. And I really enjoyed, I be boy running, I be boy jumping. It's just another way to express yourself and for children to express themselves. It's quite beautiful.
I have to admit that I read this book before, and I said to Mel, I don't really like this book. Like, it's just, the words are all over the place. Like, it's just kind of weird. I said, it's probably poetry, and I don't understand poetry. But now listening to everybody talk about it, it makes more sense to me, and I can see the value in the book.
That also brings the value to these kinds of conversations, right? To be able to unpack a book together is a really important thing, I think, because we're going to bring different things to it, and we're going to see it in new ways by seeing it through each other's eyes. So yeah, I really value this opportunity to be with all of you today. Thank you for sharing that.
I have to say that, Langston Hughes is one of my favorite authors. I'm always ranting and raving about him. So when I found this book, My People, because he has a lot of poetry written, that I came into the office like a lunatic, telling everybody to read it. I've been shoving it down their throat, but I just love it. And I love the photography, the way it's such a short poem, but it's very powerful. And I thought, what a beautiful way to see yourself, to be known that, your soul is beautiful, your eyes, your hair. What a lovely way to, you rough day out in the yard and come in and hear this and be told how beautiful you are and how valued you are. And I think it's just, it doesn't need to be a long poem. I think it's just that the shortness, the simplicity, it just really speaks to the heart of how Langston Hughes sees himself and sees Black people. And very beautiful, very powerful.
It evoked a sense of pride. I could just feel that there was pride in the author, and this connection to belonging, which again is an assumption of mine as a white person listening. But I was, and then the beautiful real photos is what we need to be offering to children, as real images in stories as well.
Just hearing everybody's comment, and I think just reflecting a little bit on the series thus far, I think, something that resonates for me is something that I just heard at a workshop recently, which is that diversity is a fact and inclusion is a choice. So once you approach the fact that we are all different, and then we start to celebrate what's different, and then we choose to bring other people together, I think that the fact that we're celebrating the beauty in what's different, we're already recognizing that everybody is different. So that's a bit of my reflection. And when Diane was talking a little bit about how recognizing how children need to be loud, and or some children need to be loud. I remember people when I first had people coming over to our house going, why are you guys so loud all the time? Are you fighting? Are you fighting all the time? And that's just the way that we interact, and to recognize that there are different communication styles. That doesn't necessarily mean it's something that's all hostile. Yeah, is very valuable as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Yvonne, and it does speak to, the ways that we as individuals view the world, and our worldview, and what we see as normal, quote unquote, and how that that is different, and we have to really consciously think about our responses to those differences, and are they um, being used to other people, right? To marginalize people, or are they used to, as you say, make that choice for inclusion? So I love that. Excellent reflection.
Well, maybe it sounds like our conversation is drawing to a natural close, so maybe we'll leave it there. Thanks, everyone. It's really nice to see you all. And hopefully those who are tuning in on Facebook also enjoyed their time. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the day. See you in a couple weeks.